I have a goal right now of personally helping 1,000 people grow their businesses. If you want to help me reach that goal, then take a second and share this episode. Thank you so much. What's up, and welcome back to the Matt Peet Marketing Podcast. Today, I've got an awesome individual, John Stange. So John is a follower of Jesus, husband to Andrea, and father of 4 great kids. He's the founder of Platform Launchers. He's been writing and podcasting for years. His shows have been downloaded millions of times. His blog typically ranks #1 in Google searches, and his latest book was published by Penguin Random House, the largest publisher in the United States. He's been serving his pastoral ministry for 25 years. He started building his platform somewhat accidentally through repurposing his content of his sermons into self-published books, blogs, and podcasts. John, thank you so much for being on the show.
Matt, thanks for the invitation. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so for everybody out there listening, I know John through a group called Total Life Freedom. I've had a few people from that group on the show because the group is filled with such amazing people. But I wanted to have John on for all of the reasons that I just read in your intro, John. Like, I've been following along in everything that you're doing, and you're on the TLF calls that we have, and the things you're doing, I feel like everybody looks to you for like, okay, what's John, like you have your YouTube channel where you post videos and you're like, I'm going to buy a vacuum cleaner and make a video and have it pay for itself. Like, who thinks like that? That's really, that's, and you did it. So that kind of stuff I think is awesome. But I want to have you on today because you just launched something called Platform Launchers.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell all of us a little bit more about what that is?
Certainly. Yeah. Over the past 7 years, I've been working to develop certain things online. So I started with writing Kindle books, and then that transitioned to adding podcasts. And when both of those started growing, then I started to realize, okay, I think I need a website to kind of house all of this together because these are disconnected elements. And so I started a website, but then I thought, well, I need to be able to market the website. And if it's a static website and doesn't have a blog, that's not really going to serve very well. And so I added a blog to it. And then I kept adding additional elements to the different things that I was doing. And I remember at one point I looked at it and I thought, all right, what is missing from what I'm building here? It's become it's growing. It's become a healthy source of income for me. It's accomplishing the ministry purposes that I wanted to accomplish with it. And I realized, and this is a big clue that is really helpful, I think, for all of us when we're trying to figure out what am I supposed to do next. I started listening to the questions people asked me. They wanted to know, hey, how did you get into book publishing? How did you get a traditional book deal? How did you start growing your podcast? How did you develop a YouTube channel? How did you do this? And I realized that the missing piece to what I was doing was showing people how it all fits together, how to develop a comprehensive online platform and not get stressed out about it and learn how it could become a full or a part-time income and do it in steps, do it gradually, just kind of outline it. And so several months ago, I launched Platform Launchers, and that was the purpose, to show people how to put it all together so it makes sense.
That's awesome. I love how you kind of solved your own problem along the way. And I just had a few episodes that I did solo episodes on the show here because I listened to people that I was talking to. I had coaching conversations with people about how to start a podcast, and people want to know how to record for a course and that kind of stuff. So I put out podcast episodes about that. So listening to your audience has definitely, it's led to an entire business creation here.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happened. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely amazing. So I know you have, is it 3 or 4 podcasts that you run now? I know it was 3. Is Platform Launchers one of those?
Yeah, Platform Launchers is the newest. I really haven't unfurled it in full force yet. That's coming. I just have a few episodes up, but I haven't really been promoting it yet. But yeah, I'm at the start of a 4th podcast.
Nice. That I've been thinking about starting my second one here, and I'm getting nervous because I'm like, 2 podcasts, is that too much to manage? And then I talk to somebody like you as 4 going on. It's like, nah, I can handle 2. It's fine.
Especially if it's stuff that you enjoy talking about.
Yeah.
That's the thing. When it comes to these subjects, if all of this felt like work, I really wouldn't be doing this. We wouldn't be talking about this. Because I have other things going on in my life. My wife and I, we have 4 kids, and I've been pastoring a church. I've been full-time in pastoral ministry for 25 years. And so in building this, I didn't have the desire to add another job to my life. This is work that I do because it doesn't really feel like work most of the time. It's something that I enjoy, and it kind of scratches that itch of focusing on the things that I'm actually passionate about. And so even when you think about, starting a second podcast, as long as it's something that you're really excited about, it's the type of stuff that I think sometimes just naturally flows off our tongue. So why not record it and share it with somebody else? You enjoy talking about it anyway.
That's a really good point. So you have all of this stuff. You're doing all this stuff. You have monetized YouTube. You've sold a ton of books. You have millions of downloads of your podcast. But what would you consider your marketing expertise?
I think my marketing expertise is realizing that there are certain things that would be considered like top of funnel type activities that can lead to the other activities that produce income. So what I've discovered is the podcast is my main marketer. So sometimes people think the podcast is an end unto itself, and to a certain degree it can be, but the podcasts lead people to the other things I have going on. That leads people to my email list. That leads people to my blog and my website. That leads people to look into the membership community that I have. That leads people to look at some of the books that I've written. And so the podcast in and of itself, I enjoy doing it. I enjoy producing the content just for the sake of producing the content, because it again scratches that itch of the things that I feel most passionate about talking about. But it also is a top of funnel activity. And then right alongside of that is my blog. I've discovered that the blog is something that, since I produce regular content for it, and I give titles to each of those blog posts that I think are going to be subjects that people are searching for. So I try and think, all right, what am I talking about in this blog post? And how would someone actually search for this topic? And so I title those blog posts usually something that I think someone would be searching for. And then over time, what ended up happening is those posts started to rank in Google. And 57 of those posts on my blog, I've been blogging on there since 2017, but 57 of those pages have ranked #1 on Google for those specific search terms. I remember when I found out one of them had done that, and then 2 of them, and then Google sends me those monthly reports, and my best month, 57 of those ranked #1 for their search terms on Google.
That is outstanding. Okay, so I need to focus on the blog a little bit more. So with your growth, you started a podcast, and I remember you accidentally did it by repurposing your Sunday sermons. So I have this podcast. I've had another one. At this point, you have a decent following. You millions of downloads. You start a new podcast. You mention it on one of your other 3 shows or all 3 of your other shows, and you have listeners.
Right.
So I want to go back to when you started that first podcast. Were you trying really hard to grow it? Were you kind of, like you said, it wasn't really a job, so you just kind of did it for fun and it just organically grew? What was your growth method when you started that first podcast?
It's kind of, well, so I don't still have my first podcast. My first podcast was a leadership podcast, and I did that for a few months, but then I transitioned out of that into what is my biggest podcast now. It's called the Chapter a Day Audio Bible. And so I have a personal habit of reading a chapter of the Bible when I wake up in the morning. Just grab my Bible, read a chapter. And I thought, what if I start recording this? And I thought to myself, you know what? I really should record this, because this will help somebody. And I think that's the metric that I use with anything I try and build. How will this help somebody? If this helps enough people, then it has the inevitability of catching on. If it solves a problem for people, then I think it's going to have some legs to it. And so I had no idea how big the podcast would grow. I had no idea it would lead to other things. I just knew that that one thing was something I felt specifically led to do. I thought, I'm going to do this. I feel motivated to do this, even if I'm the only one that uses it, because I thought it would contribute just to my desire to have that personal discipline of reading one chapter of the Bible each day. And I thought, this kind of creates some accountability, because people will start listening to it, and then they're going to be expecting the next chapter. And so, it'll keep me accountable. But I also thought this is something I hope my children would use. And so I had that as an internal motivation. But my very first month of doing that, you ready for my stats? My very first month, the total stats on that podcast is over 6 million downloads right now. But my very first month, I had a total for the month of 14 downloads. And I'm pretty sure I was most of those downloads, because I was probably checking to see if it worked.
Yeah, so 14 downloads, you're doing one episode a day. Mm-hmm. That means you checked your own podcast every other day.
Basically, yeah, I was just kind of like, and I should say that first month wasn't a complete month too, but when I look back at that first month, I'm like, it was 14. I looked recently because somebody asked me, they're like, how many downloads you have your first month? And I was like, I don't remember. Let me go back and check. And I looked back and I checked, and it was 14. Now, my second month, it got up to, for the whole month, it got up to 608, I think it was.
Wow.
So I had 608 downloads my second month. But these are the advantages I think I had going for me. First of all, I'm pretty active on social media with my friends, right? With my friends and people that are part of the church. I don't have like some massive social media account with a whole bunch of people that don't know me. The social media I mostly use is with people I actually know. And so I was sharing that just in my personal Facebook page. And I would let people know, hey, I've got this going. It also, I think, helps that as the pastor of a church, I'm leading an organization. So there are people there that would say, oh, what's the pastor up to? Oh, he created a podcast. It didn't help a ton, but it helped a little bit. And then I also think it helps that I'm, reading a chapter of the most popular book of all time. You know what I mean? Like that has to account for some of this. It's not some obscure topic, right? It's the best-selling book of all time. And so I think people should put that into context. If you're doing something that's a little more niche, I don't beat yourself up that it doesn't have the same kind of reach, because, there's an inherent advantage to what I've been focusing on. And I have several other podcasts, but my biggest one is the Chapter a Day audio Bible.
That's really cool. And thank you for sharing like startup numbers and all that kind of stuff. That's really interesting to know all of that. So you have platform launches now, to kind of go back to that, because I think what you're building over there is an answer to a lot of problems, because it's not a course on how to create this or create that. It's how to create a platform, which is kind of like what you said. It's what you have. Like, you're active on social media with your local group, your church, your friends, that kind of stuff. I see you in our group all the time. So you have kind of your platform that you've built out. People know about it. Like, I have your book sitting by my bed, and you've built this platform. So I think platform launchers is going to be a really cool way to answer those questions that you've been getting. So I know you talked about the proposed episode title for this episode is "We'll Pay You for What You Know." So go into that a little bit. Like, why would you choose that title?
Yeah, what I've discovered is, as I've been doing all the different things that I've been doing, whether it be writing books. So when I really got into writing books, what ended up happening is people started asking me questions about that. And they wanted to know, because most people on this earth want to write a book and they don't know where to start. And so I started telling people what I was doing and simple ways to get it published. And one of the easiest ways to get it published is through Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing. So I started there. And I had a self-published book prior to KDP starting up, but it was hard to distribute or market or do anything like that with a self-published book prior to that. Amazon started that up. I started tinkering with it. I started learning how to format. I started learning what sold well and what didn't sell well. I learned how to make covers. And people started asking me for advice on doing that. So I would advise people to do that. And people would take my advice and then they would go and do it. And then they started realizing, okay, well, why are yours selling better than mine? And I would say, okay, well, here's what I think it is. I'm using this promotion to market it. I'm using this social media to market it. I created a cover that looks like this. I gave it a title that looks like this because it made it easily searchable. It solves a problem. I'm like working through all these things that apply to blog posts, that apply to podcasts. I'm learning it all through Kindle publishing, through trial and error. And the thing is, it's not costing me anything. It doesn't cost you anything to do that other than time, which is a valuable asset, but it wasn't costing me money. And it's a good thing because I didn't have it to cost me, right? And so I went from that. I got really adept at that. People started asking me questions about it. And then it just became second nature to me. And I thought, all right, let me just try another thing. Got really into listening to podcasts in 2015. And by the end of 2015, I thought, let me try my hand at this. So then I got better at that. And then people that wanted to get into podcasting started asking me all kinds of podcasting questions. So then I worked through how to create your cover art and how to structure your episodes and how long your episodes should be and where to share about your episodes. So then I learned a new skill. And then I thought, all right, well, I need to develop the website and I need to add a blog to it. And then I did that. And people started asking me, well, how did you build that? And how are you marketing this? And so it's just the same story over and over again with each individual piece. But then what I realized was it becomes like a machine where one element of your platform helps elevate the other elements of your platform. And you become your own media channel after a while if you add enough elements to this. And so when that light bulb went on in my mind, where I realized you have unlocked something here that's a puzzle for a lot of people, and you know how these pieces fit together. And people ask you about this all the time. So I thought, all right, I'm going to, instead of trying to do this one-on-one with people all the time, where at times people would offer, hey, could I take you out to eat so that I could pick your brain on this? Hey, could I pay for an hour of coaching with you so I could pick your brain on this? I thought, why don't I do this on a larger scale and develop a membership community that's all around helping people develop platforms? And I decided, you know what? I don't have a ton of time because I'm doing all this platform content that I'm doing. But what if I set this up so it's a low price membership? And my thought was, if I do it low price, then people aren't going to expect an immense amount of my time, but I can commit to a training session each week. And then we record these and we'll make the replays available. And then we'll have a forum where people can discuss, and I'll connect other people that are developing platforms to each other, and we'll learn together and develop community around it. And it's young. We just started this a couple months ago, but it's going really well. And it's really exciting to see how people are taking the plunge to do this. And I feel like because I've made it so that it doesn't break the bank, it's the type of thing that a beginner could get on board with and become an expert. A beginner could come and hang out with experts, and we can all learn and encourage one another. And I find it really fun and really edifying. And the feedback that I'm getting, we just had a training session last night that I felt was like a really key session for the group. And all morning I've been getting feedback from people that are in the group with just really positive and affirming things that the one guy said, I've been in this from day one, and this was the week that it all clicked for me. So that was really exciting. And then somebody else sent me a message. He's a new member, and he said, all right, the light bulb is really going on. I'm seeing how this works. And so it's motivating me to continue to do this, but it's been really exciting taking what took me 7 years to figure out and condensing it down into a launch plan that people can just say, all right, let me just skip to the head of the line and just figure out how to do this and not take 7 years.
Yeah, that learning from others, saving 7 years of time, I mean, worth way more than what Platform Launchers is currently costing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you have somebody who joins Platform Launchers and they're like, all right, I want to create a platform, I've got no followers, I've got no podcast, no blog, no anything, what's the first thing you advise them to do?
The first thing I advise them to do is to understand the nature of a platform, because there's 5 segments of what you're going to be doing if you're developing a platform. And the first thing is you want to discover your message. It's like these 5 Ds, right? So you begin with discovering your message. And so typically, so even with platform launchers, I discovered that I had a message about developing platforms. And how did I discover it? Well, what do people come to me for counsel for all the time? They're always asking me, how do you develop this? How do you do this? And I work them through the process of discovering their message, to deciding how they're going to deploy that message, and then ultimately what it looks like to develop a team and derive their income, and all these things that are kind of just a process that I'm walking people through. And so that's where I tell them to start. Start with discovering the message, because if you don't nail down what is the thing that you get excited about talking about, that you could talk about for a half hour with no notes, and you can confidently talk about it in front of anybody, what's that thing that you could talk about that people ask you about, that they say, no, you're the expert? So, I was at podcast movement just a few months ago, and everywhere I went, I saw you, Matt. Everywhere I went, I see Matt with this camera. I see Matt's wife with her camera, and all around. So I don't know, I'm the type of photographer that has an iPhone, right? So if I wanted to get into photography, I would call you. I would ask you. I'd be like, Matt, like, what do I do? Or, Matt, how have you become the photographer for this big event? There's obviously something about taking your skill and then connecting it to serving other people, right? So I would look at that like, in my mind, you're the subject matter expert in those areas. So I would go to you. And I discovered in my life, I was the subject matter expert for certain things. People went to me for those things. So I thought, all right, that's what I should talk about. And that's when people join platform launchers, that's one of the things I want them to nail down right away. Discover your message. What's the thing you can just talk on and on and on about with no notes, that people come to you and say, like, you just know this because you've been living it out for however long. Help me, be the shortcut for me. Tell me your thing. Give me the secret sauce. What is it? And that'll help you figure out what your platform should be developed around.
Okay, so follow-up question. My wife is in a position right now where she's wanting to start creating a platform online, and she's trying to decide what to talk about. And she is kind of torn between 2 things that, like you said, she loves. So one, we love traveling. We love car camping and going to national parks and hiking and kayaking, paddleboarding, all that kind of stuff. But she also loves Disney World. Like, we live 6 minutes from Disney World right now. We got married at Disney World. So she's torn between creating her Instagram account and followers and all that kind of stuff based around Disney or around traveling. We don't get to do as much traveling right now because she has a job she's working at. So, time is limited, but we live at Disney. So what would you advise her? Like, how would you decide, or do you just kind of pick one of the 2 and run with it? And how would you go about that?
So the first thing I'd ask her is gut feeling. Which one does she get more excited about?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd also ask her, what do people ask her more about? Do they ask her more general travel questions, or do they ask her specific Disney tips? Do they want to know, like, where do I stay when I go to Disney? What's the best way for me to economically bring a family of 4? What's the best time of the year to go? Do I get that new Genie pass, or do I get something else? Like, if they're asking her questions like that. And then here's another thing I would say. Someone might say, oh, that market's saturated. Everybody talks about Disney. It's like, really? That market's saturated, meaning a whole bunch of people are super interested into that topic? Do you think the Bible is a market that is oversaturated? Do you think there's a lot of people out there talking about the Bible? There kind of is, right? But if it's your passion, it comes out in your voice. I care about that. I care deeply about my relationship with Jesus Christ. I care deeply about what the scriptures say. I want people to know what's in there. And so I talk about that. And if she's excited about something like Disney and could give people inside knowledge that she spent a lot of time figuring out just because she's so excited about it, that's something that I look at look at, and I think that could also be a source of income for her, because monetizing your advice on something specific like Disney is probably a little bit more easy than if she becomes a generalist and decides to just talk about, general subjects. You can do both. You could do both there, but you have to figure out what your specific lane is with the other one. So travel is very general. You'd want to figure out a specific angle or specific focus that people ask you about travel. So it's like economic travel, traveling with pets, like what does that look like? Or being somebody who gets to travel as part of your vocation, like using travel as a way that you can earn an income, like travel and earn an income at the same time. Like, so you're doing like photography that brings you all over the place. I happen to know you're going to be up in Pennsylvania at some point here doing some travel that's also related to your, how you earn a living. And so there's a way to monetize both of them. My gut feeling, if she asked me what my gut feeling is, and I don't know which one she would go with, my gut feeling is the Disney one. But that's an opinion. Like this would be like, can she still be talking about Disney 2 years from now, or would it fade?
I mean, she's been talking about it for a good 5 or 6 at this point.
So my gut feeling is that she could build a platform around that, and it would not be hard to monetize that, depending on how she approaches it.
Cool. I'm going to send her this episode when it launches to get her to listen to it, because she's been struggling with that. And I think that's great advice. And yeah, I when she's working, she works at a hotel. She's a supervisor at one of the hotels on Disney property. And she said whenever somebody comes in with a Disney related question, they send them to her.
She's the
because
expert.
she's the one who knows everything about Disney. So
and can I suggest something related to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
That I hope would be helpful to her if she goes in that direction. And hopefully this will be helpful to anyone listening here too. If you're developing a platform that you think in the back of your mind, you might want to use as a source of income. So not everybody develops a platform with the idea of monetizing it. So that's not the point of every platform. And to be honest with you, when I started my platform, my long-term goal, my main goal with it was not monetization. It was message. I just cared about the message. When I realized that it could be something that I could also earn an ethical and healthy income from, I thought, yeah, I'm very interested in that, because it freed up my time from doing other things. And then I was able to focus more on developing that platform. But when you're developing a platform, if you want to earn an income from it, one of the things that you want to have in the back of your mind is, how am I going to help somebody either save money or make money with the platform that I'm putting out there? So if I'm helping people save money, they're likely to pay me for my knowledge. If I'm helping people make money, they are likely to help pay me for my knowledge. So if you're training people with a skill that helps them to get a job, or if you're offering people counsel that helps them save a whole bunch of money on a vacation, if it saves, the exchange of money is a lot easier if people realize, yeah, there's value in this, because I'm going to get more in return than what I'm investing here. So if I'm going to spend money on this, then I hope it saves me money somewhere. Or if I'm going to spend money on this, I hope that it makes me money somewhere. So I'm just going to kind of put that thought out there. If the long-term goal is to monetize the platform, it has to have that kind of an exchange for the person that's using it. If the goal is not to monetize the platform, then you don't really have to worry about that. But if you're looking to turn it into something where you make an income, those are things to keep in mind.
I love that. If I'm helping someone save or make money, then I'm likely to get paid for that knowledge. That's a really cool way to look at that.
I think that's the key. Oh yeah, that's the key.
That's awesome. So like you said, with your first podcast, you just wanted to help people. And I mean, even going to like taking that to the imposter syndrome, I mean, you could have been like, oh, well, there's Bible apps and there's audiobooks already with the Bible. Like you could have said, no, nobody needs this. And you wouldn't have a podcast that's been downloaded millions of times at this point. Like you said, that saturated market. Yeah. Disney's a saturated market, but that means there's a lot of people interested in it. So that's really cool.
You could look at it and say it's a validated market. That's probably a better way to say it, where we just call it a validated market. People want it.
That is a great way to put it. So if people want to check out platform launchers, they're wanting to create a platform, and you have the roadmap of what you need to do. Where do they go? How do they get involved with that?
It's very simple. They just go over to platformlaunchers.com. And if you go to platformlaunchers.com, you'll see some info about it, the type of things that we talk about, and the way it's set up. And we always let people try it for free too. So, you can jump on board and try it, see if it's for you. And if it's not for you, just cancel it before the free trial ends. But what we're discovering is that so nobody has canceled it yet. So we're a couple months into it and I haven't had a cancellation yet. And what the feedback I'm getting from people is that they want to be in it, and they like being connected with other people doing this, and it's genuinely helping them, which makes me feel good. But again, it's $49 a month to be part of it. So it's not, we're not making this like a bank breaking type of membership to be part of. And I feel like it's a good metric for me too, to know, is this helping people? Are people having success with this? And it's been very exciting. And just, it's like it gets me all fired up, because I look at this, it's not theoretical to me. This is a whole group of people that I get to look at and meet with each week, face to face via Zoom, as we solve these problems. And I get to hear their success stories now and see the ways in which this is working for them. It's very exciting for me. So this is knowledge that's not just somewhere up in my head. It's gone from theory into practice, and I'm seeing real people use these concepts and experience some success. And I find it very edifying. It makes me feel happy, because I feel like I'm helping people get somewhere quicker than it took me to get there.
Yeah, and that's huge. Skipping like you said, there's 7 years of like trial and error and testing out the KDP coupons to sell your book and the different, that's priceless. And then on top of that, having a community of people there, like you said, you're meeting every week. Like, I know the difference in my online business life between me being active with Total Life Freedom and not being active. Like, it's a huge difference. Like, having that community there is a game changer in itself. So I know that's probably, I would imagine that's probably just as big of a part of it as the actual information itself. Just in my experience.
Definitely is. Oh yeah. And I want to give a shout out to Total Life Freedom as well. That's where we met. And I've thoroughly enjoyed being in community, and I've seen the impact that has on my mindset, because it's nice to find a group of people that talk your talk. It's nice to find, I don't know too many people in my day-to-day life that are podcasting. My family isn't podcasting. My neighbors aren't. For some people, I bring up podcasting, they're like, now what is that again? And I'm like, how do you not know what podcasting is at this point? And I just had someone, I'm going to pick on, I won't say which member of my family this was, but a member of my family recently said to me, hey, I met an Irish musician somewhere. You ought to have him on, do an interview on your blog with this guy. And I was like, an interview on my blog? I was like, so you mean my podcast, right? It's like, I don't know. One of those things that you do, isn't it called a blog? I was like, never mind. So half the people in your day-to-day life don't even know what you're talking about. So it's nice to meet people that do.
Yeah. And I will say, I get this same vibe about that. Like, I followed John Lee Dumas from Entrepreneurs on Fire. I don't know if you know him. I followed him way back when I was in college. 2014 era is when I started following him, and shot for him the first time in 2015. And I just assumed at that point, because, I'm in a bubble. I'm like, everybody knows who John Lee Dumas is. He's got a podcast. He makes a lot of money, all that kind of stuff. And I shot for him at Funnel Hacking Live this year. And I was like his video guy. He was one of the keynote speakers. And I remember going up to one of the people working at the event. And I'm like, hey, is John Lee Dumas, like, is he prepping backstage or something? I couldn't find him. And the guy's like, who? I was like, John Lee Dumas. He's like, who's that? I was like, he's literally speaking on stage in like 30 minutes. Like, the guy working the event didn't even know who the speaker was. It's like, man, no. It was a humbling experience for sure.
Oh, that's funny.
All right, John. So this has been a great interview. It's eye-opening, great tips on how to create a platform, how to know what platform to create, where to launch. Right now, I see on your website through December of this year, 2021, you've got the pre-launch pricing. So I would suggest people go jump on that. And then you have the yearly pricing as well, which saves them money, obviously. But interesting, I see that coming in January, you have lifetime access. So it gets rid of the monthly plan altogether. It's just a lifetime payment, which I think is super intriguing. So I'm gonna be looking at that because, yeah, I don't like monthly payments. I'm the Dave Ramsey guy. You know, I don't want the monthly payments, that kind of stuff. So I mean, that's really intriguing for a lifetime access with a community, with trainings, with tried and tested things on how to launch a platform, how to build a platform. So that's really awesome. John, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Matt, it was an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for giving me the chance to share a little bit and for your hospitality and inviting me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Everybody out there listening and watching along, thank you for joining us. And remember that marketing really matters. If you know someone who has a business that could use some help marketing their business, take a second and share this podcast with them. Thank you so much and have an awesome day.